Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, we'll talk to the CEO of one of the fastest growing wellness companies in the country. His story is just ahead.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
Well, I can't think of a topic hotter right now than anxiety and stress. I think we're all undiagnosed victims or survivors of PTSD. I mean, we got thrown into a pandemic, and then you layer on top of that all of the tragic news we're hearing every single day. The Ukraine, Uvalde, a mass shooting in Tulsa. All of us are walking wounded. And to talk about that today, Awstin Gregg. He is the CEO of Connections Wellness Group. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Now, you have many different titles, and we can't fit them all on the screen. Licensed clinical social worker, licensed chemical dependency counselor, master's in business, and CEO. You wear a lot of hats.
Yes, I do. I appreciate that, and it's a lot of fun what we do. Very fulfilling.
Okay, tell us the journey. How did it start?
I grew up in a hospital system. I started as a mental health technician in a local psychiatric hospital. Worked there for a number of years, ultimately making my way up to the CEO seat. And while I was occupying that seat, there was almost an epiphany moment or an unquenchable curiosity of entrepreneurship of what it might look like if I did it on my own. And so I grabbed a group of trusted partners, and together we set off on that journey, which will be coming up on 4 years. And 4 years later, we have many locations spread out through North Texas. We've grown our employee count, and we've grown the number of people we've treated every single month. It's been such a privilege and a blessing.
Well, I praise you because not everybody who's on the front line caring for people is also a good leader. Where does the leadership thing come from? Mom, dad, something from business school?
Yeah, I think it's going to be eclectic in all of those. I like to think any relationship that we have, there is some level of knowledge or wisdom that we can gain from them, good or bad, in that. And whenever we meaningfully collect those experiences, the way we think about things, and the way we envision the person that we want to be, I think that we have an opportunity to develop that leadership profile. And whenever we seek to edify those around us, they often sharpen our tool in leadership too. So it's a continual learning process, and it's one that, thank you for that compliment, but it's one that I'll always be focused on.
Well, one of the topics I want to get into with you is anxiety, depression, and teens. And I know you have a robust program. We've got a little video that we're going to show while we're talking about this. What are you experiencing with teens and depression?
Well, the increase in depression, the increase in anxiety, some statistics are suggesting that it's 1 in 3 at a conservative level. And if those statistics are true, mental health has become more common than the common cold. And the beauty of mental health is that it's very treatable. We're finding the opportune time to intervene in individuals' lives, to give them the skills to process these pieces collectively as we're going through them. There's a great deal of intervention that can be done. Our team has found a calling in adolescence, and we sought out to do a wonderful program that really meets their needs, not only from an academic standpoint, but a clinical standpoint, and gives them the tools that ideally they don't need our services ever again once they're finished.
Awstin, I know certainly a generation ago there was a stigma attached to seeking help. I think that stigma is drifting away now, isn't it?
You are correct. It is subsiding. I think one of the unintended positives of the pandemic is it put mental health in the forefront. And I think the idea of removing the stigma, people needlessly suffer because they're worried about the shame that the stigma has described. But when we lean into it, we find that perhaps perhaps not true, not the way that we thought it would be. And so the more we have an opportunity to have a conversation about the stigma, it gets us to a place where we can ask the right type of questions. When we ask the right type of questions, we can then make meaningful interventions. And so the spotlight being shined, especially on this generation, I think can only be a good thing as we look forward.
Absolutely. And a leader is only as good as his or her team. And you have an amazing team. How many team members do you have now?
So in total in the company, we have about 380.
Wow.
We are blessed. I would describe so many leaders within what we do, and the way they interact with patients or each other. It really creates the culture in which we can do the best work possible. So I can't say enough about them. We wouldn't be here without them.
And we've got some pictures. I creeped on your social media today. A lot of ribbon cuttings. You guys have been busy just opening offices. You have 13 locations, or soon to be 13?
Soon to be 13 locations. It's been a wonderful blessing taking it from our first office in Denton and expanding geographically. It's an intentional decision we made about 1 year ago. And the way we've been welcomed into these communities over and over again, and the way that we'd like to believe we insert value into the health of that community, it becomes complementary in many dynamics. And so it's our hope to continue expanding.
We were talking off camera about the idea of compassion fatigue. I think just as a regular person, having all this negative news on every single night, I think I'm becoming numb to some of the images that I'm seeing on TV. When you have frontline employees who are dealing with trauma and healing every single day, how do you guys make sure that you guys are okay?
Such a great question. Compassion fatigue and burnout, I describe it as two of our greatest rivals. We can be wonderfully fulfilled by what we do, but if we don't balance it with appropriate self-care or attention to ourselves or those boundaries, sometimes our light dims a little bit quicker than we'd like it to. Some of the things that we do at our organization is we always encourage the idea of self-care far beyond simply just saying you should have a quote-unquote work-life balance, whatever ambiguity you attach to that. We have a platform in which our employees, if they participate in healthy behaviors, we will provide them a separate stream of compensation just to do that. So incentivizing it in that way. We also are mindful of what they describe as their strengths and preferences, and we don't ask them to work outside of those. We try to honor those. And more than anything, as we pass them through the hall, the recognition of all the team members there is they're doing a noble thing in a very elegant way. They're carrying the burdens of so many others while they themselves carry something. And there is a special place in my heart whenever I think about someone willing to do it. So when we provide the appropriate setting, the appropriate culture, the appropriate incentives, it's my hope that we make a step in the right direction.
Well, one of your team members, Brian Dunn, was interviewed by my daughter in our Fort Worth studios earlier this week. Let's go ahead and play that soundbite.
So Connections Wellness Group started in 2018, and this was started by a guy who's also an LCSW like myself, but he was a young guy when he went into the field as a mental health tech at a hospital up in Denton. And then he became their CEO at, I think, age 24. Then he branched off with some other people, some other folks. They borrowed money and invested and said, we want to do it different. So they started Connections Wellness Group to get out there and do something with a different model. So his approach has been to really build into the team, the people who are providing the wellness and healthcare and connecting to the community. And there's an environment there that I got really excited about. There's a medical provider, a doctor. Our director of medical care is a very well-known psychiatrist, Dr. Atkinson, and that excited me to be a part of anything that she's doing.
Yes.
Right. And I think the other thing that was just nice is I got the sense from the team that I was joining that there's going to be a lot of autonomy. You're going to be able to be creative and innovative, and you're going to be given the green light to do some things if it makes sense.
It's obvious that your team members love working with you, and that's a tribute to your leadership. Let's talk a little bit about some of the benefits and what separates you from others in your space. You were telling me before the show that somebody can call you up and actually get an appointment that day sometimes?
Absolutely. Whenever we think about mental health, some of the obstacles that our community experiences is in order to get specialized, affordable, and available care, it's impractical, or sometimes it requires traveling a great distance. And some people would likely succumb to just private paying for different services. And so as we grow, we do intend to be a service to our community. So the idea of same-day appointments, it is our scaling strategy to always ensure that that's going to be a practical availability. I think that's important whenever the community asks for your help, that you're able to deliver it in a timely and available manner.
And you, in terms of your competition, you're outpacing your competition on a national scale, aren't you?
So we are proud of our outcomes. I think we're one of the few organizations that are willing to actually put them on our website. And I think when people are saying, hey, I'm struggling with depression or anxiety or substance use, sometimes whenever they call us, they've been wrestling with that decision for years. And they deserve to know the place that I'm calling, are they going to be able to help me? And I think that a lot of our patients find reassurance being able to see, hey, we've helped 250,000 other people experiencing the same exact thing. And I think that provides reassurance.
Talk about chemical dependency, because when the pandemic hit and I knew everybody was working from home, I said, man, there's day drinking going on and probably some more, harder stuff than that. What are you guys experiencing?
So we do see an increase in that whenever we were encouraged to stay at home. Sometimes our distractions, which could be work, or our distractions, which could be our hobbies in the communities, those seemingly temporarily dissipated. And so we were left to some degree with our vices, and the engagement of that did indeed increase. We have wonderful partners in the space with Vertava Health, and the increase that they saw and the increase that we saw, we are hoping that together we can really fight and see this need be met.
We're almost out of time, Awstin, so that's your viewer. Just talk to the person who's watching this right now who they're saying to themselves, I think I need what Connections Wellness Group does. What's your advice?
So my advice is a lot of times people think that they are alone or they have some type of illness that no one else has, but the idea that this is very normal and what we're going through are very challenging times, and there is help available. The idea that we might call it a private practice, but I would offer to you it's a lot less practice and it's more practical treatment. If you are experiencing anxiety and depression, it is treatable, and you do not need to live with that, and help is one phone call away.
Wow. That's a great way to end this. Awstin Gregg, CEO of Connections Wellness Group. We're going to end with the website, which is connectionswellnessgroup.com. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
And that's it for now. We'll see you next time.